Good afternoon from New York. Today's subject, inner mind communication between the devil and the deep blue sea, voting in America, and magical thinking. Well, that inspiration came to me thinking about Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And our choices here in America. Yeah. And looking at it from an inner mind communication perspective, I'm seeing the devil in a deep blue sea. Empathetic, empathy and awareness are things that are the philosophy of this channel. And actually practice that in your imagination, your inner mind, and you should practice that with people in general. And there's a politics involved with, hearing voices and responding, making decisions. And that goes on in your mind, it goes on between yourself and other people. This coming election is, well, as Noam Chomsky said, we have two business parties. They're not for the regular individual. And as far as countries go, we're the stingiest when it comes to helping the poor, and I want to blame the poor half the time for their plight, which is very soothing for the people who are taking more than their fair share from the work of other people, which would be billionaires. Billionaires, they don't earn all that. Come on. What's your idea of earning? They never work a sweat, so primitive or, basic idea of earning something means that you put in real energy. And there's only so much energy that a human being can put in. Not that you really earn anything. Everything's a gift. How smart you are, everything's genetics, your society you're in, your educational opportunities and all that. These are gifts. And so, in a sense, we should be about sharing. So, the devil in the deep blue sea is, well, you've got a con artist on one side. So, he's fueling up hatred and fear, which people who want to con you do, and setting up a very strong sense of us versus them, when it should be fair trade, and so that we can truly have free trade, and that means fair taxes. Now Joe on the other side is well, he's for a greater amount of fairness, but he's constrained by the general norms of our society, which are governed by extremely wealthy people. Well, all the time, since the beginning. Really, It's they were wondering, do we have a republic or a monarchy in the beginning? Well, we move past monarchy. Of course, Trump would take us back to a monarchy, and there's not a lot of freedom in that. And a republic is a lot more free. And a republic is there for a reason, because you don't want a tyranny of the majority over the minority either. So we're kind of in a balance between greater democracy and what do we want to call it? Dictatorship. And we don't really want either of those things, because they would be, for human beings, it would be disastrous, because we do tend to, when you're in the majority, you tend to overlook the minority at the very worst, least at the worst that you could do. And, you know, they're good scapegoats, you know, about poor people, minorities. Where are all the scapegoats for people to blame problems on, when really greed is the problem? There's nothing Christian about the far right under Trump. Nothing. You know, if you're a Christian, you definitely shouldn't be voting for Trump. You should be voting for Joe. You know, it's just unreasonable that anybody would call themselves a Christian, which was, Jesus was very on point when he talked about greed. If Jesus was not a capitalist, okay, get that. You know, whether you agree with capitalism or not, or how much you agree, or how much you think it needs to be tweaked. Jesus wasn't a capitalist. He wasn't for a few people getting all the wealth. Now, capitalism is great as an engine of creating more products, which, by the way, can have a problem in and of itself, the landfill. But it also tends to create, although it works against poverty to some extent, it tends to create this vast difference between the poor and the wealthy, to the point that it, you know, it becomes quite a wrong thing. So everything has to be tweaked with another perspective. That's part of the inner mind communication, empathetic awareness form that we're talking about, tweaking it between tweaking our approach to politics and to our lives is dependent on different perspectives that have to do with meeting human need, which is all about trade and society, and interpersonally. There's a trade going on. And so, but you need compassion, you need creativity, and you need objectivity in order to make a better trade. And you have to not let any of these things be totally dominant. They are all useful working together. That influences trade, and that's how trade is improved. And it's a balance between the voices of church and state and the media, all of these, and business. All of these things need to be tweaking each other, putting some boundaries, some clarity, but not complete isolation. Um, Between the devil and the deep blue sea in the next election, because the norm in this country is sick. And some of the people who haven't been benefiting very much are noticing it. And so, what do? Well, you vote for what's the better. People say, oh, just the lesser of evil. Well, the lesser of evil is also the greater of good. So you do what's more positive for the country and for yourself, and that means being practical and looking at your real choices. These politics in this country are so bought that it limits our choices. There's too much money being used as free speech. Money is not speech. When somebody says that money is speech, that you're in the wrong country for fairness. Yeah. Yeah, but if money is speech, then who has more money? They need more votes, so to speak. They need more power over government, more power to influence. Is that right? Is that fair? No. It came about partly because in the beginning, resources were smaller, and those who had any education at all had money. Those who had no education were the poor. And so they didn't really want the poor to vote. That's how things were set up in this country. You were wealthy and you were white, you had more power. And you could vote. And that's the us-them problem, which is a real problem in our society and around the world. We're one family, but we see it as us-them all the time because of resources and greed and a lack of artfulness in how we deal with those things fairly with one another, and how we use compassion, and how we use our objectivity. Magical thinking, that's what keeps people in the dark. If it's like when you can't do anything, then you go to magical thinking. I'll say a prayer. Of course, did that do any good? No. Sorry. That's magical thinking. Magical thinking ain't going to get you anything. What do they say? Wish in one hand and something else in the other. What do you end up with? Yeah. So, wishful, magical thinking. That's been keeping us from addressing issues more accurately and doing more about having a fair system. And the norm is not fair in this country. It's not. So the deep blue sea is still unfair. Joe and his and the blue party, that's still not quite fair. to everybody. It's not the optimal exchange of goods and services and help to children. And for God's sakes, it's not just about one country, it's about the whole world. We're all tied together. You can't just help yourself, you have to help others. And they help you. You can't just help your country and not other countries. You help them and they help you. And you try to find a way in which this works. That's pretty hard. You always have these people like Trump and Putin who are power mongers and greedy, and Xi Jinping. These are some of the worst examples. You know, you don't want to join my country, and I want the power and the goods and the services that you have. I'm going to take it over by force. Well, why don't you make your country so wonderful that other people would want to work with you, be with you, have a relationship with you? Why don't you do that? That's because you're weaklings morally. And you're trying to grab things, and so you're a con artist, so you spin fear and anger, and you get that stirred up, and then you end up killing our children. You know, thank you. But no thanks. We don't, you know, it's a whirlpool of a mess that we can get into, and that's the devil. That's Xi Jinping, Putin, and Trump. And the leader of North Korea shouldn't be left out of that list. And there are others. They're the devil in this picture. And I'm speaking mythologically. I'm not, you know, this is a use of mythology to make a point. I don't believe in a devil. Right? There is the devil. Okay, there isn't. All right, there is no devil, and there's no mommy and daddy in the sky to save you. It's up to us. In this world, God's work must surely be our own. Correct. If you want to get close to some absolute source of all love, be that love yourself. Practice that love in yourself. Practice it outside of yourself. That means politics inside, politics outside, done the right way. If you're in a democracy, you should vote. Even if you're not, and they have a polling place, go and vote. You know, go and vote as long as it's safe. Go ahead and vote. And then it's on them when they don't count correctly. But this last Joe won that election. Republicans and Democrats worked on the vote. They said, we did a good job. They retested it, still came out the same. And even with the Electoral College in his pocket, you know, or they tried to. That's the only one that's even that wasn't in his pocket this time. Trump lost horribly. That was like 7 million votes. You know, it's wow. You know, that's the popular vote. He lost the two against Hillary in the popular vote. He lost against Joe Biden in the popular vote. That was proven that he won that election then. And Hillary accepted the win that was because of the Electoral College. Yeah. even though actually, if it were a popular vote, he beat him. But we ended up with Trump because of the Electoral College. That has to do with the states thinking they're a little bit different than the government, that they're kind of their own little country in a way. That's been part of the Union for a long time. Since the beginning, we started off as a confederacy, and that changed to a union. There were Confederates who wanted to go back to, our state, our own country if we want to be. They had a war about that. Well, people being more united, it's more helpful. So, yeah, so he lost twice. He's a big loser. He's weak morally, and he's no Christian. Jesus taught against greed. The first church had everything in common. Read up. So that nobody would be without. Little compassion there. Huh? Oh, the poor, they get what they deserve. They're lazy. Really? So the poor, and nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to be lazy, because lazy means that I've got nothing to offer. I'm a big zero. Who wants to say that? You just would like to think that I'm offering something of value. When you beat people down so hard that they've given up on having any hope of offering anything in trade, then they just sit back and take what comes, and in a constant state of depression. And so is that their fault? No. Now look at what we're doing. We don't even invest in the education of children fairly. But I'm ranting. I've covered the devil in the deep blue sea. And I'm going to go a little bit longer with that. It's just, the Lincoln Project. Okay, a noble project in terms of saving us from a dictatorship. But where does the Republican Party think it was going when it took the most evil aspect of the Democratic Party and says, hey, that's us? Right? Where did they think that was going to go eventually? So they can say all they want. They birthed Trump. And now that they've made this big mess, they're going, we should go back to what we had before. Well, what you had before led to this. So you have to fundamentally change. All right? And if you don't, I don't have any problem with no Republican Party. I'm sure that the gap will be filled. There's enough differences in the Democratic Party that we could form two. All right? So, your election deniers, your global warming deniers, your science deniers, your anti-vaxxers, which is insane. You've become, one Republican actually said once, we've really got to stop being the stupider party. I can't tell you who it was, can't remember, because I'm not so smart. But, yeah. You really do And what feeds all of that is magical thinking. You know, I can accept being poor and the rich not paying their fair share of taxes, which could easily give us the best universal health care in the world, better than what we got now, if we invested in it the way we do with war. So, is there something so particularly crazy about human beings that we can't do better than this? Maybe. I hope not. You know, you can quit blaming everything on people who are, true Christians, socialists. You can quit blaming things there. Your problems aren't coming from there. You could probably put in your hand all of the people that are truly dedicated to a more fair world. Unfortunately. And that's what they say. Greed is good. It's greed is what works. That's how we motivate people. So no, that's wrong. That's not virtuous. That's not good. And in the long run, you produce a tremendous amount of waste. Our landfills are filling up. We're using up more and more of the Earth's resources without putting anything back. We're heating up the planet. And we're not even dealing with it. It's an existential threat to humanity. And we're not dealing with it. We're not. And I'm sorry, I don't have a great, place to film. Maybe I don't have the best sound equipment. But if let those with ears to hear. Trump is not anything like Jesus. I'm not a big, I don't believe in religion, period. Because it's magical thinking. You don't get anywhere magic unless you're just trying to fool people for your own benefit. I don't believe in that. If I did, I would be ashamed of myself. But people need to take another view. There's magical thinking going on. If I vote for the guy that tells the best jokes, am I going to get better government? No. If I keep voting for the people that support not paying taxes, no. Taxes we need. Do we get a better government magically by getting rid of taxes on the wealth? Taxes on the wealthy? No. There should be no billionaires. There should be no group of people, no handful of people with the power to buy the government. That shouldn't exist. So, what the Lincoln Project have in common with the deep blue sea of the Joe is returning us to the norm, to the balance which is still way too much in favor of greed. Way too much. but it's better than a dictatorship. So see the nuance here, okay? The greater, the lesser of evils is still the greater of goods. So vote for Joe. Be enthusiastic, because look what's, on the other side. Absolute destruction. A firestorm of hate and fear. People manipulated then magical thinking. We just have more power, we'll fix things. So that's a kind of magical thinking too. We have the power now to destroy the entire Earth with our nuclear weapons. We're on the verge of extinction from a number of different forces, and all of which could be fixed if we had more compassion, more creativity, more objectivity. So I say I'm a rational mystic. That just means that I want to increase that amount that I have, compassion, creativity, and objectivity, and get them working artfully inside myself. So is that inside or outside? It's inside. But is there an inside and an outside, really? Just from a physics point of view, there's just all of these energies flowing. We're like a, like a whirlpool in a, what do you call a funnel of water, circling about. In a vast ocean. We come into being, go out of being, and we become part of that ocean again. And those who are from a bit basically see that. You see a lot of things that Sapolsky talks about. And interestingly, and yeah, you can be deeply introspective and still rational, compassionate, and creative, and work in a rational way to improve your introspection. And that, really means a comparison between what you see and think of as outside yourself and inside yourself. Bringing that together and comparing and contrasting. So, because it's, you don't live in an imaginary world. Yeah, you do. Our brain is the imaginer of all we imagine. You live in an imaginary world. It's the world how you imagine it to be. And the only way that you get out of your imaginary world to any degree is using these different kinds of perspectives. And the only way that you are motivated by those perspectives is if they are empathetically felt between yourself and others and within yourself. And you don't have such a rigid self-concept that you can't imagine change. You can change. You can no longer be the person you was, to some extent, anyway. And you can be a better person. The path of the rational mystic is introspective and it's subjective, but it's educatable. So the rational mystic educates that subjectivity. With objective, creative, and compassionate empathy. And the fluidity of that allows you to feel like you can change comes about when there's no us and no them. All the Zen stuff is, basically how you viewed things before you had a self-concept, when you were an infant. No language. That's an extremely important point to make. Because in this whirlpool of this firestorm whirlpool of hate and fear, that's when we lose connection with these foundations of virtue, objectivity, truth, compassion, goodness, and creativity, artfulness. That's when we lose and trust. The dramatic self, when you need still trust. That's a virtue, to be able to trust with, it's a virtue, but it's fed by all of these other virtues. And enabling it to exist. When you hand a piece of paper to somebody, it's because you've built up trust. Paper's worth nothing. It says U.S. something to indicate it's your country's currency. It's just a piece of paper. So you built up trust. Trust is helped with these other perspectives, these other virtues. The trust itself is a kind of virtue. And all of them need a little bit of bravery in order to entertain them, in order to give them space, voice. So that bravery means that we have to be heroes. Story of the movie of our life. Heroes of what? Heroes of love. Kind of us and them doesn't exist for the infants so much. Not so much there, because there's no self-concept. Really. Yeah. That doesn't exist. Once that exists, once we're language creatures, we perceive an us and a them. And then it's me and others, subject and object, which collapses in meditation practices, which is part of our inner mind communication that we teach here. And it's us and them regarding our, my nation, your nation. Well, you've got to, the rational mystic brings the world together in a reasonable, rational way, promoting the virtues that help to better meet needs. And when you better meet needs, you have a happy lion instead of one on the ground. So we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs fairly of everyone around the world as much as possible. It's an unfair, it's not a loving universe. We're an itch on the back of nature. We're tolerated. And we were produced, but we're no more important than to the universe than an ape or mule or second. Perhaps fungi are the most important thing. A lot of life depends on fungi. So, yeah, we shouldn't be so proud of ourselves. You know, we should be humble. Humility is a virtue I don't talk about very much. Another result of using the things that we teach here. The practices of which can be done. We will eventually do Zooms and other things to help educate people. Not only in that, but how to organize politically so that you don't end up with the devil, and that you improve the deep blue sea. Yeah. Magical thinking ain't gonna help. You know, all those people that where there was a fire at a Catholic meeting for on Easter. I forget where. It was terrible, none of that. Very sad. But they were there to pray. Did the universe care? No. Didn't care. There was a fire. So, is there a positive look at that? Yeah, because we're very fragile creatures. Why are we building up nuclear arms and spending money on this and trying to beat other people into submission in order to steal from them? What big countries do to little countries a lot. Only sometimes in very subtle ways. But they're doing it. Yeah, we have cell phones that the dangerous mining is being done by children. And you catch the big companies and they go, "Oh, we're doing all we can to keep to virtuous principles." Oh yeah, I'd like to hear from the kids. Anyway, another perspective. Bringing these perspectives together might be a little bit uncomfortable. Just as intermind communication, the way we teach it, can be a little uncomfortable. But it's worth it. That is, if you care. If you haven't given up on yourself and the world and everything else in it, worth it. So, I wish I were a smarter guy. I could better speaker to give you this or this wisdom. But see, I'm doing all I can with what I've got. And I'm asking you to do the same thing. And if you agree with what's presented in this channel, to any degree, then this channel is your voice. It's easy. Instead of having to do these videos, it's easy thing to subscribe and help the channel or share the videos. And they're going to be improving. Okay, the quality will be improving. For people. That's coming soon. And we need help. So it's very easy It's very easy to subscribe and to share videos. Remember, this is your voice. And one day, you might be one of the voices in this channel's video. That is quite possible. So, it's your voice. If this is your voice, or enough of it, subscribe. Okay, subscribe to the channel. Share the video. Okay? Make your comments and your questions so that more people are pulled in. At the end of the videos, or at the end of the description of these videos created, we will try to provide useful connections, channels that are good, and sites that you might want to visit. We'll be improving that too. So again, subscribe. This is your voice. Don't let it die. You've been listening this long, probably your voice. Don't let it die. Make it stronger. And if you're in a channel that agrees with these things, then we can work together. We can do whatever we can. And democracy's on the line, for Pete's sakes. And the media is so bought that they're presenting it like a real horse race. Really? We only have one qualified individual running. That's Joe. That's kind of sad too, really, if you think about it. But that's it. The other guy's totally unqualified. A proven, and he can change. I don't want to punish the devil. I don't want anybody. That's another sickness, that people fall into, that Jesus also taught against. We need to heal them, heal their minds. We can protect society by keeping them locked up, but we should be working on healing their minds. Not beating them over the head. Beating people over the head doesn't make better people. It might create a fake act, part of the people. No. You need a little rational mysticism going on. I'm hoping that some of this will reach out into our prisons and give them hope and help them to understand that they're not worthless, that they are valuable to society and to themselves and to their families, and that they can be healed. But you've got to also be kind, giving. And that's one of the things that practice inner mind communication, you become more forgiving. You also become our version, you become more objective, more creative, and more compassionate. What's the downside of that? Pretty much upside all the way, I'd say. Shout out to Tennessee Brando. A young man is nailing a lot of things. He should. And Robert Reich, someone who really understands the economy, we should listen to. Sanders. So we need a strong voice for the true liberals in this country. I'll bet that if you practice the things that we talk about in this channel and you really think about it, you're a liberal too. Anyway, take care. And as I close out, I like to sing my favorite Irish blessing. That can be like a joke, like, you can make fun of that. It's thrown in as really my way of joking around, having you listen to a poor singer. Yeah, it's kind of like Jack Benny's violin playing. But anyway, I like to sing. Say, here's my blessing to you. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rain falls soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Or her hand, or its hand, Hand of the universal brain. Who knows? Huh? Yeah, anyhow. You take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great day. What I like to say at the end of my videos, means that it's a way of honoring something beautiful that exists in all of us. That purity that we were born with, that oneness with all things, that potential for love. And the blessing, and realize the blessing that you are receiving. Because in the love flow, there are no losers. Nobody superior or inferior. Love. And honoring that in you today, and in all of us, I say, stay. Namaste. A great day.